Picture this. It's a completely normal Tuesday. Millions of people are logging into their banking apps, booking flights, paying for groceries, and then suddenly, the dashboards across your entire engineering floor start flashing red. A massive cloud region just went completely offline. Payments are locked up, flights are grounded. It's total chaos. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tearing apart one of the most absolutely critical, high-stakes topics in all of modern system design: disaster recovery strategies in distributed systems. What happens when an entire data center just disappears? That's the terrifying question we have to answer. We build these massive, modern, digital systems assuming the infrastructure beneath them is rock solid. But let me tell you, it isn't. Data centers catch fire. Power grids fail. Cyber attacks cripple networks out of nowhere. It is literally never a matter of if an entire data center will go down, it's just a matter of when. So, how do the absolute giants of the tech world, Netflix, Amazon, Google, the major global banks, how do they actually survive these catastrophic failures? Well, they use disaster recovery, or DR. It's this incredibly carefully orchestrated mix of infrastructure and automated planning designed to restore systems instantly. Because without it, you're looking at staggering financial losses, brutal operational downtime, and probably some pretty severe legal consequences. The end goal here is super simple: total business continuity, no matter what.
Section 1, Metrics and Backup Fundamentals, the Rules of Survival.
The foundation of literally any disaster recovery plan rests on two absolutely critical metrics. The first is RTO, or Recovery Time Objective. This basically asks, how quickly must the system recover after a disaster strikes? If you're running a global bank, your RTO is going to be measured in minutes. You literally cannot afford to be offline. But say some internal reporting tools, they might easily tolerate an RTO of a few hours. The golden rule to remember here is that a lower RTO requires highly advanced, redundant infrastructure, which means your costs are going to scale exponentially.
Now, while RTO is all about time, our second metric, RPO, or Recovery Point Objective, is entirely about data. It asks, how much data loss is actually acceptable? For a financial ledger, the only acceptable answer there is absolute zero. But if we're talking about a massive analytics platform, losing maybe a few minutes of user clickstream data, that might be totally fine. Achieving a near-zero RPO requires relentless, continuous data replication.
And that brings us to the most fundamental safety net we have: backups. You've basically got three main strategies here. Step 1 is a full backup, which is exactly what it sounds like, a complete copy of all your data. But doing that constantly is way too slow, so we use Step 2, incremental backups. This stores only the specific changes made since the very last backup. Step 3 is the differential backup, which stores changes made specifically since the last full backup. But here's the big catch, folks. Backups alone are dangerously slow for high-traffic systems. If your primary database absolutely melts down, restoring the whole thing from cold storage could literally take days.
Section 2, Replication and Global Failover, the arsenal.
So, to survive a massive outage without your users even noticing, we have to continuously move our data. And here, we face a classic system design trade-off. First up, we have synchronous replication. This means a write isn't complete until it's confirmed on multiple systems. It gives you incredible consistency, perfect for banking, but it does add some network latency. On the flip side, there's asynchronous replication. Here, the write finishes immediately, and the replication happens in the background. It offers blazing fast performance for things like streaming platforms, but it comes with a slight risk of data loss if the primary system fails mid-transfer. Okay, so your data is continuously replicated globally. Awesome. Now what? Enter Failover Systems. Let's say an entire cloud region goes totally dark. Global traffic management systems will instantly detect that dead region and automatically reroute millions of users straight to a healthy secondary region. By combining that data replication with automated failover, your downtime essentially drops to a fraction of a second. It's almost like magic.
Section 3, Disaster Recovery Architecture Models, the Master Plans.
These architectural models are really all about balancing recovery speed against some pretty massive infrastructure costs. First up is backup and restore. This is your cheapest option. The infrastructure basically stays offline until disaster strikes, meaning your recovery is going to take hours. Next up is pilot light. Think of this like the pilot light on a gas heater. A really small flame is always on. Minimal core databases replicate continuously, while the rest of the app basically sleeps, just waiting to scale rapidly when needed. Finally, we have warm standby. This is a partially active environment sitting there ready to go.
It offers a very fast failover, but you're definitely paying to keep those servers running even when there's no disaster.
But if you really want to play in the big leagues, you use the most advanced model out there, active-active architecture. In this setup, multiple regions remain fully active and serve traffic simultaneously. There is no standby at all. If region A gets completely wiped off the mat, region B is already handling live traffic and will instantly absorb the remaining load. Zero downtime. It is astronomically expensive to run, for sure, but for the huge tech giants, downtime is simply not an option.
Section 4. Cloud Automation and Observability, the Modern Defense. Look, when the alarms start sounding, human beings panic and make mistakes. Relying on manual human intervention during a high-stakes disaster is a guaranteed recipe for failure. That's why modern recovery relies so heavily on automation and infrastructure as code. Major cloud providers offer powerful native tools to automatically handle failovers, and by utilizing tools like Terraform and Kubernetes, engineering teams can rapidly and consistently recreate incredibly complex environments from scratch in just minutes entirely through code.
But of course, you can't fix what you can't see. During a major crisis, observability is your eyes and ears. Engineers rely heavily on dashboards powered by tools like Prometheus, Grafana, Datadog, and OpenTelemetry. These let them monitor service health, keep a close watch on replication lag between regions, and track the exact progress of those automated recovery systems in real time.
Section 5. Chaos Engineering and Resilience, Mastering Failure.
Knowing exactly how to recover is great and all, but how do you actually know it works when it counts? Well, the best way to survive a catastrophic disaster is to intentionally cause one yourself. This is what we call chaos engineering. Elite engineering teams validate their readiness by proactively breaking their own systems right in production. The most famous example of this is Netflix's Chaos Monkey, which is literally a tool designed to randomly terminate live production servers right in the middle of business hours. I know it sounds completely crazy, but forcing these failures is how you ensure your automated systems remain totally flawless under unexpected conditions.
And hey, beyond just the automated chaos, the human engineers need practice too. Top organizations run incredibly rigorous disaster recovery drills. They systematically test backup restoration, just to make absolutely sure the data hasn't been corrupted. They test failover procedures to actually watch the global traffic reroute. They practice their incident response workflows and their communication protocols. Because honestly, without running these simulated drills, even a $1 million recovery plan is probably going to collapse under the pressure of a real incident.
We also definitely can't forget that disasters aren't always just innocent accidents. Sometimes they are deliberate attacks. Your recovery strategy has to heavily integrate with your security to defend against things like ransomware and insider threats. You do this using immutable backups. These are backups that absolutely cannot be altered or deleted once they are written, not even by a system admin. They are kept in entirely isolated, air-gapped environments. So if hackers manage to encrypt your primary data, those immutable backups are sitting there untouched, locked away, and completely ready to restore the system.
Section 6. Final Summary. Designing for Resilience.
If you take away absolutely anything from this explainer, let it be this. We've covered RTO and RPO, the absolute necessity of data replication, the power of active-active architectures, and the wild world of chaos engineering. Really strong engineers understand one fundamental truth. System failures are an absolute certainty. The real challenge is this. Reliable systems are not defined by never failing. They are defined by recovering gracefully when disasters occur.
At the end of the day, it is all about how your architecture responds when the lights suddenly go out. You now understand the strategies, the big trade-offs, and the master blueprints used by the biggest tech giants in the world. So the challenge is now yours. Whether you are prepping for a massive FAANG interview or you're architecting the next huge cloud platform, think deeply about the data centers, the networks, and the inevitable chaos that's coming. How would you design a system that survives global disasters? Keep building, keep testing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.